So Lauren kindly brought brunch, also known as tuna, which is really stinking up this place right now. So if you're listening to this, you can just imagine the smell of tuna sandwich. It's like when people bring something really smelly on the airplane.
Yep. I'm fine with it.
I'm not above it either.
Yeah. You like what you like.
You're starving and you want to eat something healthy, and then you open up the lid or unwrap it, and it's like, whoosh.
And then it dissipates, and then people get over it.
Yeah, then people get over it. It's better than like farting.
Exactly. Exactly.
I agree. Okay, what are we doing this week, Lauren?
We've got a couple one-on-ones.
We got a bunch of working sessions. We're looking for a chief commercial officer, so we are in the final rounds, which means it's a lot of interviewing time.
That feels exciting.
It's super exciting.
Yeah.
I'm very excited about it.
It feels like there's a lot of energy.
I'm very excited about it, but it's exhausting to interview people all the time. Yeah. I think it's exhausting to interview all the time. Do you have any interview tips?
Interview tips as like an interviewer?
Or an interviewee?
Ooh, I struggle a lot with interviewing.
Really? Why?
I find it to be really anxiety inducing.
Really?
Yeah. And I think it depends on like who's interviewing you and like how, I don't know. I think.
Do you just like play the conversation 6,000 times in your head?
Yeah. I like to be really prepared and,
okay.
But then sometimes you can't prepare for you know what I loved about Food 52 though? Everyone was so kind and like relaxed.
Okay, that's
so
nice.
it felt easy.
Yeah, you're like I could like to. Maybe
yeah,
like
I can be myself.
Here.
Yeah, which isn't always the case.
Okay.
So you've got a lot working sessions. We've got podcasts, some meetings, org transformation,
Sunday Sports Club podcast. What is that?
Yeah, I actually don't know what that is.
Let's click on that. This is a Jessica Rose special. Okay.
Oh
boy.
Oh boy.
Oh.
Where are we? All right. Sorry, we're doing stuff. What else are we doing?
We're doing a lot. Okay, you've got more working sessions on Tuesday.
Tuesday, I'm in New York City.
Oh, yes.
Tuesday, I'm in New York City. Okay. Oh, geez. Okay, we got stuff
we've got
Monday.
some, like,
we got stuff Tuesday.
Big plans. Got some Mike Kearns on the calendar.
Yep.
We have our Nobody Cares event.
Oh, yeah, we have our Nobody Cares event. Jody Carrington's coming.
We're
I'm
so
very
excited
about Jody Carrington. I love her.
What do you, I don't know that much about her.
She's amazing. She's a psychiatrist. She's a psychiatrist and a therapist, I believe. Very wise woman.
Love.
She's written, I think, 3 books. She has great energy. She's got like big, great people energy.
Ooh.
And she's funny and she's self-deprecating.
I love that.
And she kind of gets to the heart of it about you.
Amazing.
And she's great like that.
And it's good. I love like a therapist, psychiatrist. They just
any
know.
Therapist, psychiatrist friends? I don't.
I do actually. A lot of my friends are social workers in social work school. Yeah.
So when you're like
I learned all
ranting and raving about your problems, are they like, hey, Lauren, maybe you want to reframe? Or
they're so insightful. And I have to say, my family thinks that I'm a feeler and emotional because I have emotional friends.
Oh, interesting.
Who know how to navigate like therapy vibes.
Okay. So your family thinks that you are extra emotional because your friends are.
They taught me what it means to be vulnerable.
That's so funny. I think my family thinks I'm like a corporate terrorist, and that I was influenced by a bunch of corporate ladder climbing people. My family's like kind therapy by nature.
Yeah. Vermont, New Hampshire vibes.
Then I came to New York, and they're like, "What happened to you?" Okay, so that's funny. We have the Axon's earnings call.
Yep.
Okay.
Right before. So that's fine.
Yeah, shit.
Is that okay?
We're going to be busy. Yep.
We're busy. You're busy on Tuesday. One-on-ones on Wednesday. You've got we're filming on Wednesday instead of Tuesday. That's exciting.
Note, this is what ChatGPT is for. Like if you got to be 2 places in at once, you just get a note taker and you synthesize it. Like I wish people did that more. Okay.
Like when I look at this calendar, like doesn't this make you a little scared?
No.
No? You're just like used to it?
I like a full calendar.
Yeah.
Do you like a lot on your calendar or a little on your calendar?
I like it because I like being busy.
Okay, but what about like on a Saturday when you have an appointment? Do you put it in your calendar or do you just remember?
No, I got to put it. Everything has to go on the calendar.
Too.
Yeah,
Same.
Even like the silliest little things, it has to go in there.
What's like a silly thing on your calendar?
Like a silly thing would be like, I got a date. I got to go on a date.
Oh, okay. You put the date on your calendar? Do you just say like date?
Well, because then I'm like, I look at it and someone asked me to hang out. I was like, I don't know. Am I free? Am I not free?
Yeah, no, I have the same thing. I have a short-term memory loss.
Short-term.
Yeah.
I think it was COVID, to be honest.
Yeah, could be. Oh.
Thursday. Oh, wait.
Greenwich Mom's lunch.
Where is that? Oh, that's
I
on.
don't know. I'm supposed to be
actually-
doing something. God, I have a lot going on next week. Okay, so this does stress me out a little bit. Okay.
Couple one-on-ones. You've got Q2 product plan review. That sounds exciting.
Oh, okay. Seeing Ashley Flowers, which I'm excited about. Do you know who she is?
I don't. Who's Ashley Flowers?
She created Audio Chuck. She has a very big podcast called Crime Junkies.
Crime Junkie.
She is a big deal. She's like the Dave Portnoy of crime.
Whoa. Do you like crime podcasts?
I have been known to listen to a crime podcast, but I'm not like a crime podcast junkie.
Yeah. I was in the early serial days, and then I kind of abandoned it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it is a cool medium.
It is cool.
I used to watch a lot of Law and Order and a lot of like crime stuff because it's oddly soothing, which is really
soothing.
fucked up.
People find a lot of like
if
comfort
you can
in
get to the
SVU.
resolution. Yeah. 100%. Okay. So that seems like a disaster. So I got to rest up next weekend.
You definitely do. And then you're closing out Friday with some lunches.
Yeah. I have a lunch.
Some one-on-ones, a little hiring update.
Okay. Great.
You got a lot going on.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
All right. Anything else you'd share?
No. Unless you...
All right, you're like, give me out of
I'm
here.
like, we're good. Have the best time.
Thank you. Thank you for the bagel.
Yes. Let me know if you need anything.
All right. Welcome back to work. I'm eating my lunch. It's Monday morning. I'm happy to be in your ears. If you are listening to this or watch it, do me a solid and rate and review. Even if you think this thing absolutely sucks, I would love for you to tell that to YouTube or to Spotify or wherever you listen to podcasts. So we appreciate the rating and review. We are trying to grow this thing and to make it stick, and your help is needed in that. The second piece is we've got a big episode today. We're doing generational knowledge with Lindsay. Lindsay's back to visit us, which is awesome. We're going to start with tips and tricks, which I'll get into in a second. We'll do current events as always. Getting a lot of feedback on the internet about my hot take on Spotify saying that people should only work from home. And then we'll go through what I'm struggling with, which is a whole big long list of things. Tips and tricks. So I worked all weekend. I don't know. Sometimes I have these weekends where I just like end up working all weekend, which is actually kind of nice because I don't have any meetings. So I could like actually get into the zone of like writing something. So I wrote like a 50-page deck on our business this weekend, which was like awesome and terrible. And then it's like Saturday night and I'm like still writing it. And I'm like thinking they're like a little glass of wine. And I'm like, God, I'm such a loser old lady, like figuring out Google Docs, Google Slides. But anyways, the thing I was thinking about this weekend and writing about is that I really think when you think about the success of a business or really anything, you have to do one of two things. And my husband actually gave me this piece of advice, which is that you have to either own the product or be the product, or you have to own the relationship or be the relationship. And one of the things that I think gets hard for companies, and myself included, gets hard for people, is you get caught up in the day-to-day of all the things you have to do and your to-do list and all the things you need to work on and all the priorities that you have. Like you just get caught up in the washing machine of things that you need to be doing that you forget to take a step back and really ask yourself, can I win by doing this? Like, is there an outcome of this thing that matters? Like, is this going to result in something? And what I keep getting to with our business is in order for us to win, we have to own one of those two things. So I don't think that's rocket science. We certainly didn't invent it, but it is something that I'm thinking about, and because it's making me realize where we're caught in the middle and where we don't own the product and we don't own the relationship. And oddly, I bet if you do this at your work or in your job or in your life, you're like, oh shit, like you're spending all your time there for the lowest return from there. So that's one thing I'm just thinking about. I spent this weekend organizing for our business, like where do we own the product and where do we own the relationship? And, you know, I think they're very different. Like I think Food 52's done an incredible job at creating a network of makers and artisans and craftspeople. But Do we own that relationship? No. Like, what would it take to do that? Schoolhouse has done an incredible job of really creating something so compelling for trade, interior designers, residential and commercial designers. But we don't own those relationships either, I think, the way we could. And so, like, how do we grow relationships? What's it take to build those relationships? How long will it take to develop them? Like, thinking about relationship development and then thinking about product creation. You know, when you have a brand like Schoolhouse, the design is the product. So how do we make sure we're putting the right emphasis on what we own, which is the design, and we're becoming as efficient as possible in the manufacturing of it, because that's not differentiated the way the design and the product is. So I'm spending a lot of time thinking about that. I think it's a good clarifying exercise to do. The other thing I did on Friday was we started to have like 3-month check-ins. We have a bunch of new hires here, and just really taking the Zoom out to say, like, okay, you've been here 3 months. So the folks who joined us October, November are now starting to come up on that 3-month window. And one thing I would recommend, if you're a manager or if you've joined a company and you're, you know, a quarter in at this point, is to do that zoom out of, what did you come here to do? Are you having success? What did you learn? What surprised you? What did you come into that you didn't anticipate? What have you accomplished? I think that's a big one. And what do you see differently than before you started? And what do you know now that should shape what you should do in the future? I wish I had done this at Food 52, to be honest, when I was 3 months in. I'm now almost 12 months in, so I'm having a very, very belated one of these, hence writing the like 30-page PowerPoint over, or you don't call it a PowerPoint anymore, 30-page Google Doc over the weekend. But I think having the time to zoom out helps you get out of the day-to-day and get out of, like, I don't know about other people, but I spend so much time, I think, just getting on this treadmill of like stuff I'm supposed to be doing and have to get done, and my to-do list and my task management, that I'm forgetting, like, wait, what did I come here to do in the first place, and how are we progressing against that? So those are my tips and tricks going into today's episode.
Now work.
All right, talking about current events. So I had a call yesterday with a consultant, or a former consultant from this company, and we're actually having I don't know if this happens to you, but like, we were actually having like a shoot the shit conversation where it was, usually when I get on the call with somebody, I have 30 minutes allotted and I'm like right down to like, what are we doing today? But we actually had like kind of a meandering conversation. So we were talking about what's happening in Rwanda with the Congo, which is kind of scary. We had a bigger conversation about foreign aid in Africa. We were having a conversation about tech. And then we got into this conversation about the status quo. And I think one thing, you know, you have to have your head under a rock to be not seeing all the headlines about the changes being made in government and just what's happening in the U.S. overall, which is, I think, kind of emblematic of what's happening around the world. Companies are becoming more nationalistic. Countries are becoming more countries are becoming more nationalistic. People are fighting against the status quo, and I actually think that's the biggest thing of it, which is the disillusion with the status quo is one, I think, what really propelled this election, which is, you just heard at least Americans saying, like, we don't want the status quo, something has to change. And then the second piece of that is, when you look at what's happening in Washington, it's really this like blitzkrieg, move fast and break things, go, go, go mentality to cut, slash, change, stop really immediately. And you can tell that the speed and the breadth and depth of the initiatives, the pace that they're moving at, is the strategy. And I think it's super interesting. Whether you agree with it or don't agree with it, and we kind of talked about that last week, you have to acknowledge that unhappiness with the status quo is a fact. It is a feeling. And then the second piece is that the attempt the Trump administration's approach to that is speed. And it's really a Silicon Valley strategy, right? Which is, I think, move fast and break things was like the Facebook motto. But you can see, obviously, that's happening with Doge and that's happening with Musk. But I think the other thing that's going to happen is this is going to make its way into companies. I definitely see it happening with our investors and happening with Food 52. I see it happening with other companies. I see it happening with investors and boards. And really this like, fuck the status quo. I want change now, make dramatic change is a drumbeat that is happening in culture. And I think it's something that everyone is going to need to live with and also manage, because I don't think there's any hiding from it. So that's kind of my first piece. Was interesting to see, I think Elon or Trump fired, I want to say 300 people from the Nuclear Association, National Nuclear Security Administration. That's a mouthful.
Yeah.
And then the funny thing on that was they did it, and then they were like, oh shit, we need some of these people, which like you definitely don't want to leave the nuclear pieces like unmanaged. But then they couldn't find anyone. So my thought on that one is, this happened to us. We let go of a really talented salesperson because it just didn't make any sense for us to have a sales operation in a remote office. And after that person left, what we realized was none of the client data was in any of the CRMs. So when we went to go reach out to this person's clients or prospects, we didn't even know where to start, and we didn't know where anything stands. So I do think that you never know what you need until you need it, and having the foresight to be organized about your people data or organized about your customer data, and also where things stand and who owns them and what the contact information is just super important. So that was my big takeaway on that. Also interesting to see, I don't know if people have heard the leaked Jamie Dimon call.
Do you want to play it?
Yeah.
You want to play it? Okay. We can play it.
And if you don't think that slows down efficiency, creativity, creates rudeness, and stuff, it does, okay? And when I found out that people are doing that, you don't do it at my meetings. You go to a meeting with me, you got my attention, you got my focus, I don't bring my phone, I'm not sending texts to people, okay? It simply doesn't work. And it doesn't work for creativity, it slows down decision-making, and don't give me the work from home Friday works. I call a lot of people on Friday, and not a person to get a hold of.
All right, so Jamie went on a rampage. It was actually a fairly long recorded call. I'm fairly convinced the person who recorded it has since been fired. But
definitely,
what he went on was a tirade about young people. So the first piece was how coddled young people are and how everyone who manages young people or works with young people tiptoes around on eggshells. And I thought that's kind of interesting. Like you kind of heard it when Lauren and I were talking last week about, Lauren's like, but my family vacation. And I'm like, hey, Lauren, like nobody's going to wait for your family vacation. But I think you are seeing something where establishment and management and upper management and middle management is just dancing around how to motivate, how to inspire, how to connect with, how to give feedback to young people at work. And if you listen, I encourage anyone, whether you disagree with it or love it, to listen to the leaked audio, because he really talks about what a disservice we are doing to young people by not giving them feedback, by not creating accountability, by not pushing opportunity. So I think that's a big thing. Obviously, he's a big anti-work from home guy. No one at Chase or JP Morgan works at home any day of the week. So, which is, pretty broad. There's a petition, I think, circling at JP Morgan, and he's basically like, that's a fucking waste of your time. Like, don't bother, either work here or not. But it was refreshing to hear how mad he is. That's the piece that I was like, I like that he cares so much. I like that he has so much passion. Yeah, he may like come off as a dick, but you know what? Like, one of the lines in it is like, people become so rude in video meetings, and it's true. Like we had our salespeople go on a sales call with an agency, I think a couple weeks ago, and no one in the agency turned on their screen.
They
left the black.
Yeah.
So our ladies are like pitching their little hearts out, like sharing an idea what something could be. and no one in the agency bothered to even turn on their camera. Like, that's so rude.
You're like pitching to the void.
Yeah,
pretty
you're
much.
totally pitching to the void, which is, if you've been in sales, that's such a nightmare.
Yeah.
So I think that's happening a lot. He was kind of making fun of how people will just text each other during meetings being like, what an asshole. Yeah, he's an asshole. And it's just like, it doesn't help creativity. It doesn't help productivity. It doesn't help a feeling of camaraderie. But I thought it was interesting to hear the passion about what JP Morgan does for its company, for its customers, what JP Morgan does for its company. And also, like, it's clearly a place where it's kind of take it or leave it on if you should work there. And I think if more places were a little bit more clear on you should work here or you shouldn't, or if you don't want to work here, don't. And if you do want to work here, like, jump on board. I think it would make things feel better. Kind of to the, like, being caught in the middle. If you have a company or a team or a group of people where everybody's kind of half in, not really, and they're distracted by something else, it just doesn't feel good. And work is no exception.
Now work.
This show is sponsored by BetterHelp. We have talked a lot in this episode about when you're struggling or when you're feeling vulnerable or when life seems overwhelming or work seems impossible. And I think it's very common and very easy to feel like this. One of the crazy things about society right now is it just makes you feel like you have to be independent. You're supposed to have all the answers. You're supposed to know which way is up at all times. And of course, have a very good plan for what to do about it. And we all know that that is not true. And that is rarely, if ever, the case. Online therapy can be an incredible, incredible resource for you. Getting perspective, being able to reach out to someone with your problems, with your challenges, with your vulnerabilities, with your insecurities, and with your fears can help get it off your chest. It can help you stop feeling so alone, and it can put you in touch with someone who can help you see a way out of things. So I highly, highly recommend therapy, and I deeply recommend BetterHelp. We've used BetterHelp before. It's awesome. It's fully online. It's making therapy affordable, and it gives you the control where you can connect with your therapist when and where you see fit in a medium that is most comfortable. They have a diverse network of over 30,000 therapists, which is huge. They're all credentialed, and you can switch your therapist at any time. I once went to a therapist who I was like, I hate you, and you are not my girl, and you don't get me, and I don't get you. And that is totally okay. It doesn't mean that therapy is bad. It just means that you don't have chemistry. It's like dating. You're not going to date everyone you see. You're not going to work for anyone you meet. Therapy is the same way. So try BetterHelp. You can build your support system with BetterHelp. Go to betterhelp.com/workwitherica for 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp.com/workwitherica for 10% off your first month.
Now work.
All right, so we're back to generational knowledge with my friend Lindsay. She's back. She is the host of We Met at Acme, which is a long-running podcast all about dating. And the question I have for you, Lindsay, is dating at work. What's the do's and don'ts?
I am a huge fan of dating at work, actually.
Okay.
I think that, think about like our parents and our grandparents. Everyone met at work. I mean, maybe not our grandparents because the women weren't working, but you know what I'm saying. Work is a really good place to get to know someone with no expectations and no
in
pressure.
a non-sexually charged environment.
And I remember when I was working for this magazine in my early 20s, and I would go home and like have sex dreams about every guy I was working with. And I wasn't even attracted to them physically, but it's just you get to know their personality.
And you get to see their brain. It's like actually about the good stuff.
Yeah, it's such a good environment to actually get something going. But that doesn't mean you should force anything at work, obviously. And also, it's really hot if you have to hide something at work,
That's a great point.
Like really hot.
A secret is hot.
A secret is hot.
A secret crush is hot.
And it's not a bad secret. It's not,
It's a healthy,
I'd hope that
productive
you're both, single and whatever. But it is a really fun, no pressure way to to get to know each other. But I will say that if you're a woman dating men and you have a crush at work and you're nervous it might not be, mutual, I wouldn't pursue that.
Okay, I'm going to take the other side of it. So
Please.
when I love that from a person's point of view, I wrote half of my book is about dating at work, oddly. I remember when I got to Barstool, it was only boys. Like it was only guys and me, which was fine. So like everybody was like focused on the work and getting stuff done.
Mm-hmm.
And then I brought on a bunch of women because I was like, I can't work at a place that only has guys and we should bring women in here. And then it changed everything because everyone was single. They were all in their 20s. And then it became like hookup jealousy central. And it would be like two girls fighting over the same guy. Like John Feidelberg was like the biggest hit of all time. And it would, one of them was trying to control his schedule. The other one is trying to fake being on like needing to be on a business trip that Feidelberg was on. So as a manager, I was a little bit like, come on, guys, like, can we get back to the work? I had to send this email that I had to go figure out how many people were in New York City, which is like 10 million. And I'm like, there's 10 million people in New York City. Like, can you not fuck somebody who works here? Like, can you just like go outside for a minute? So I think it can be tough from a manager's perspective. I think it can be tough. I also think it can go really, really wrong. Like, I think the crush, sexy dream, I love the hot guy in accounting or hot girl in marketing or engineering or whatever is great. I think when you get into the dating, if it goes wrong, it can go really wrong.
I see what you're saying. Isn't the chicks in The Office Girls, didn't they both marry people from work?
Rhea did.
Okay.
But like good example, Rhea was with Hank and then that went south and was like a thing. And then Rhea is going to marry Marty. So like Barstool is a whole love drama in and of itself.
Right.
But
I see what you're saying. I think that maybe I'll reframe it as like it's the exception if it works out for you with someone at work. But usually it crashes and burns.
yes, I agree with you in that it's a healthy, great place to meet someone. Like you really get to see their character. You understand them as a person. Hopefully they're funny and charming.
Right.
It's healthy. It has boundaries and it's a little bit sexy. It's a great environment to get to know someone. My other thing is I often find that I had this woman who worked for me who started dating someone else at work. And then she was like doodling his name in her cube and it became like too advertised. Like my other thing for women
everyone
is like,
gets involved.
be cool. Like just, you don't need to, it's like, be cool. Like
You gotta be cool.
you don't need to put the heart carved in your notebook kind of thing. You gotta like be chill.
Yeah. You gotta be cool. If you're gonna date someone at work, you gotta be low key. I think if it's a hetero situation, the guy needs to be the one pursuing you. But
what about if you're like two women or two guys?
whoever's more
Like the more aggressive one.
yeah, exactly. The aggressor.
That's actually kind of liberating. I hadn't thought about that. The only other thing I think is really though unhealthy at work, which I think you kind of hit on, is if you are feeling pressured that you have to, like somebody's hitting on you and you don't want it, or you're feeling like that's I think super unhealthy.
That's no good. I think, yeah, I mean that's where like the whole power dynamics at work kind of situation becomes really unhealthy, like a Harvey Weinstein moment. That's when two people should not date at work, when one person is exerting their power in an unhealthy way.
I totally agree with that.
There is, remember that show, I forgot the name, but maybe you guys know it, where they both work at like a hedge fund or something in New York City and she gets promoted. She gets the promotion that he wants. You know what I'm talking about? Yes. It was like a quickie on Netflix.
Yeah.
No, but someone like that.
I know exactly what.
Yeah. So he gets her promotion and then their whole relationship dynamic changes.
They're dating. He gets the promotion instead of her.
No, other way. She gets the promotion instead of him.
Oh, and it kind of emasculates him.
And correct. And it kind of ruins their relationship. So that's
too bad.
Things can go.
Yeah, it can go south either way.
Can go south. I personally would never want to date someone, not only just at work, but not even in my industry. But I also like it makes sense.
Yeah.
know?
I think that you just got to know.
Yes, fair play. With the girl from Bridgerton.
I think if you're going to get into it, you just got to figure out how you're going to get out of it. Like just while you're in the like heavy romantic phase, you're just like, think it through. If it's a disaster, what are you going to do?
Well, also, I think you bring up a really good point, which is that if you're going to get into it, one of you has to have a plan to switch companies.
Yes, 100%. It's hard to stay. Some people make it work.
Yeah.
And some environments, I think, are more tolerant for it to work.
Yeah. I don't think people who are in romantic entanglements should ever work together.
I think it's preferable if you don't. The world's a huge place.
Correct. Like, I think if the relationship starts there, fine, then figure out your own stuff.
Yeah.
But I don't think that you should start a relationship like organically without work having to be a thing and then go into work together.
Oh, yeah. I think that's super tough.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's super tough. What about like office sluts?
What do you mean by that?
I think I feel strongly about this. There are people who just want to sleep around. And I think it's totally fine. I think it's a great thing. I think sometimes, especially women, get branded a certain way if they hook up with a lot of people at work. And sometimes I think it's unfortunate. And other times I think women kind of find themselves in that spot and don't know how to get out of it. So I think there's a big thing of like, you just own it. If you're going to hook up with everybody in sales, like own that you're the woman who hooks up with everybody in sales.
Right. You got to, with everything in life, you got to own it. I actually know a story of a girl who worked at a big sales company.
Okay.
And she was known for giving her coworkers head in the bathroom at work, like happy hours.
That seems like a lot of work.
Yeah, I agree. It's work after work.
And also the bathroom. Ugh, are you like kneeling down on the bathroom floor? That's disgusting. I mean, imagine the germs.
Right. So don't do that unless it brings you pleasure.
Yeah, if that's your bag, like you do you.
Right.
No, you could get fired.
Right.
No, everybody's talking about it. But if that's not your bag, don't do it. I agree. If it doesn't bring you pleasure, don't do it. All right. Thank you for doing this. That was so great.
Thank you for having me.
Okay.
It was so fun.
Now work.
All right, so for our teaching segment, I don't know if this is a teaching segment, but we're going to do Sales 101. So I like to say I was raised by corporate wolves, which is really by a woman named Joanne Bradford, who is arguably one of the best salespeople I've ever worked with and of all time. And then I was further raised by a different type of wolf, which was a woman named Wenda Millard, who would be, I would say, arguably an even better seller than that. Joanne and Wenda were like the two titans. Wenda ran Yahoo and Joanne ran Microsoft, and they were fierce competitors. And this was like an era in the internet where like all that mattered was the portals. And these two women had two totally different approaches, two very different jobs in two wildly different companies, but they were duking it out in the internet streets for people's dollars all day, every day. So getting the chance to work and learn from and just be in the orbit of both was one of the best things that ever came out of my career. But I think what I learned, and if I were to try to encapsulate Sales 101, I would say it's a couple things. One is owning the relationship. And we kind of talked about that at the beginning of this episode. But if you are in sales, your business is relationships. I had this like real weirdo sales guy work for me once that said your network is your net worth, which I put into my book as something I didn't like. But when it comes to sales, he's not wrong. And the reality is that there are people, if you're thinking about being in sales, it is a network game. It is a relationship game. No matter what you sell pharmaceuticals, you sell washing machines, you sell space on the internet, you sell clothing, doesn't matter what it is. The name of the game is the relationship and really making sure you own that relationship. Wenda would call that a trusted relationship. And what she was very, very, very good at is making sure that she was that trusted advisor to most everyone she worked with. And she put a lot of time and effort into doing that. So that means checking on people when they're down. That means calling people when you don't have to. That means being so proactive and and also deeply prolific about communication and outreach. I also think it means having something to say, and more importantly than that, being a great listener. And, that's one of the biggest things I really took away from Joanne, is that she was able to listen very intently and synthesize information very, very quickly. And if you are going to be great at sales, yes, you need a network. Yes, you need people to trust you. And yes, you need to be able to listen, but you also need to be able to convert that insight that you just heard into action. And I think great people have those things. I think great salespeople have those attributes. The other thing great salespeople have is the ability to follow through and the consistency of follow through. Like, there is nothing worse than getting a client or getting a buyer all excited about something and then having that thing go poof and disappear, or having no follow through. Like, it eradicates, or it hurts and injures the whole amount of effort you put into developing that relationship in the first place. So I think to be a great seller, you have to be organized in a way that is not necessarily about where all the pieces are on your desk. It's where all the people are. And what are they looking for? And why are they looking for it? And when do they need it? And did you give it to them? And then send a second follow-up. Like, some of the best sellers I've ever worked with, or when I've had roles that have been deep sales roles, my calendar has always been full of reminders of, like, send a follow-up note, send a follow-up note. Reach out, have a list of reaching out proactively. When I was doing a lot of sales, I would book like 2 hours every Monday morning and 2 hours every Friday morning to make sure just to do outreach. So I think those are some of the things that make great salespeople. So I think being able to tell a very succinct story is also important if you are in sales, and being able to articulate your customers' needs. One of the things that I really learned from both Wenda and Joanne is you have to be your customer's advocate inside your own building, and you have to be utterly convincing and convicted about what that advertiser needs and how you should give it to them. So someone who is forceful, someone who is fierce, someone who is adamant and unrelenting about what the customer wants, those are people that make great salespeople. A lot of times people write off sellers as being dumb, or they write off sellers as being people who just, expense a lot of dinners and drink a lot of drinks. But the reality is, you've got to go out and be in the world. Sometimes I think that sales is kind of becoming a lost art because people aren't out as much. Like, they're just not doing lunches. They're not doing meetings. They're not having drinks. And it's going to create a real challenge for people who have to sell things. And it's going to create a challenge for companies who are dependent on owning relationships to drive traction. I sit on the board of Axon. Axon is a phenomenal sales organization, like one of the best, if not the best sales organization I know, because they are utterly focused on their customers. They're obsessed with them. They want to win for them. They advocate internally for them, and they are maniacal about the follow-up and the follow-through, and they are there in the good times and in the bad times. So I think all those things are really important to be a seller. The other piece is, you've really got to speak two languages. You've got to speak the language of what your company has and what your company wants to sell. And you've got to be able to translate that into what your company needs and what they want to buy. And really making sure that you can articulate what your company has to sell and why in a way that your customer thinks it's their idea to buy it. That makes a great salesperson. So that's my sales 101, brought to you by Joanne and Wenda. But I do really think sales is an art that everyone needs to understand. It doesn't matter what your role is. You are selling something to someone, and also someone is selling something to you. And really understanding how to bridge that dynamic, how to build those relationships, how to become a trusted advisor, how to advocate for things, and also how to translate are skills that I think are infinitely required at work.
Lovely.
All right.
Do you think the relationship being lost is like what do you think about the relationships that are being made online with I guess, I mean, this is a very social question, but like social media creators and stuff who are technically businesses, and they have these relationships with their audiences and clients essentially because they turn them into their
Yeah,
clients.
they're professionalizing.
Right.
Yep.
They make products and they sell them to their fan base, and that's like their customer base. So like that's a way of selling without being in sales.
Totally.
Right?
Like if you look at, Dave Portnoy sells pizza reviews every day.
Yeah.
Convincingly, delightfully. And what is it about them? They're funny. They're consistent. They are at 6 p.m. on every channel every night. You know what you're going to get. Why are you watching it? Because you want to be entertained, or your pizza place is on there, or you hate the score, right? But I do think it's really interesting with creators, where creators are really gifted because one, they're storytellers, and they're
and like you just said, like salespeople need to be storytellers.
You got to be a storyteller. You got to be a promoter. You got to be a promoter. I think, it's the people who are the most fervent about their product. Like our sales leader here, she loves to sell, and she just like turns it on when she's in the room. Like, I'm like, Alexis, like you light up when you're selling. And creators are like that when they're telling stories to their fans, because it's fulfilling and it's enriching, and it is a two-way dialogue, and they're able to translate what they have into something their audience wants. So they're really able to be that connection. I also think, I think it's interesting. I'm going through this right now with this podcast, but having an agent be your intermediary is tough. Like having somebody else sell for you, I think that's actually one of the bigger challenges in the creator space, is when you give up your agency to someone else to sell for you. And I think, one, there's somewhat of a necessity of doing that if you don't like to negotiate and you don't want to deal with the business stuff.
And you just don't have the time.
And you don't have the time, right? You're like, I'm going to put my time to my craft. But there's also a risk in it, because you lose that
control.
connection point.
Yeah.
I spoke to one of the talent that works with I spoke to one of the talent that works with Food 52 today, and she's a really phenomenal creator. And she's like, I'm feeling like I'm not heard. And I'm giving feedback, and then it's not going anywhere, and no one's doing anything with it, and I'm not seeing it in the edit. And that's a miss. So she's doing her part to convey to us, she's the client kind of in this example, here's what I need. And we're not responding with anything and not giving her what she wants. Like, that is a business relationship that's not going to work unless something changes. So I think everybody's kind of, could think about it a little bit differently, which is everyone's in the communication business. And that's, kind of getting back to the Jamie Dimon thing.
That is so interesting.
That's all it is communication. Yeah. It's like, what are your needs? What are your wants? What do you have to have? And then it's just a matter of figuring out how to get other people to want to do that with you. But you look at the Jamie Dimon thing of what's happening with young people, which is, and that's such a gross generalization, but like, sure, it's easier to sit on your couch and look at something through Zoom. But then when you need that next job, and that next job is contingent on your relationships or your ability to convert someone to do something, or your ability to sell through a product, you're going to regret all the time sitting on the couch. Like, I had a friend of mine give some feedback, who she kind of tangentially works with us. And she's like, your salespeople don't like to go out to do things. And I was like, what? But I think salespeople who don't have it in them, and look, a lot of it is like, it's embarrassing. I don't know another word for it, but like, if you have too much of an ego to go drop cookies off, or to pursue people, or to be a nudge, or to remind people of things, or to be persistent, A, you shouldn't be in sales. But B, if you are in sales and you have those qualities, like, it's not going to last very long. No. And so I think that's the name of the game.
Like, real estate's sales.
100%.
It's all. My mom's a real estate agent, and when I was figuring out career path shift after like studying engineering and not wanting to do that, I moved back home and I was helping her. And she made me go deliver these holiday boxes to all her clients, right? And I was like, why are you even doing this? This is like, so like, cause I felt awkward, even though.
Yeah, you're like, this is so embarrassing.
Yeah, like who cares? But like, it's exactly to that point. Like, she's not embarrassed by it at all. She's like, takes pride in it.
Yeah, and she's like, this is my business,
Yes,
and I'm growing
exactly.
my business, and I have to. Everybody to grow their business has to do those little things. It's like, same. My kids get so mad at me, but I make my kids write like 3 letters a week.
Oh wow,
Like
that's
a
really
thank you
nice.
note, or you gotta write something. You have to have 3 lines. You gotta say something funny or compelling. It can't just be like, thank you so much, I loved your gift, But
Thoughtful.
you gotta be thoughtful, and you gotta learn how to communicate in writing, which I also think is kind of becoming a lost art.
Definitely.
But it's like, yeah, you may not feel like it, but you know what? Writing those notes or delivering the boxes or like getting in your car and like just getting shit done is like, it's all a game of the little stuff.
Now work.
Speaking of that, just in the like stuff I'm struggling with, am I allowed to go to the stuff
Yeah,
I'm struggling with?
we'll
This
switch
is
to
not
it.
a struggling thing, but just speaking of the thank you notes. So, all right, so I had this, so when we did the event in New York City, Jessica Rose helped me, and I had been like, hey, if you've just been laid off on your job, I'll buy your ticket for you. Like, just come for free. Like, I'll take care of your ticket. So we posted it on LinkedIn, and I think we posted it on socials. And I had this woman follow up with me, and she was like, hey, I work in social media. I've just been laid off. I'm kind of gutted by it. You might have heard from my old boss, and, I'm kind of struggling right now. And I'd really love to come to the show. So I was like, hey, no problem. Like, wrote her back, connected her with Jessica Rose. We got her a ticket for the show. And she showed up at the show, and, you could just tell she was like just feeling so low, like feeling so like insecure and down. And I think one of the greatest things that we did at that show was just to say hi to everybody and see people with each other and be welcoming. But anyway, so I went up to her, and she was like, oh, this is my name. And I'm like, oh, like, I'm so glad you're here. Like, how are you? And then she started to cry.
Oh, wow.
And, it was kind of like, it was, I'm sure, a very awkward moment. But I was like, oh, like, are you here by yourself? Do you have somebody to sit with? And it's like, no, I don't have anyone to sit with. And yes, I'm here by myself. And I'm like, I just need a moment. And so long story short, I sat her with these ladies from like Pittsburgh, and they were great. And the credit, shout out to those ladies. They were like welcoming to have some stranger sit with them. And that actually is, I think, how if you have a good event where you can put strangers together and it goes well. Long story short, she wrote me a thank you note. And I got it, I don't know, last week. And I didn't open it until Sunday. I didn't open it until yesterday. And
After your 50-page.
After I needed a break from writing the 32-page document. And so I opened up the card, and it was like this awesome, like super heartfelt card, super nice. And I was like, so I should check in with her. So I like checked in with her, and she was like, oh, like, I'm still in my job search, and I'm looking, I have some prospects, whatever. And I was like, you know what? Like, if you have spare time, like, we could use a lot of help. Like, I'm trying to write a Substack. I forget half the time to write it. Like, we have a whole bunch of stuff. Like, you could say you're interning with us, and like, I don't know what I could pay you, but like, let me try to figure something out. And she was like, 1,000% yes. And the reason I share that story is that you just never know, taking somebody up on something, what can become of it. Like,
Definitely
showing up, being like, hey, I'd like a ticket to the live show. Like, who wants to go to City Winery on a Thursday night in like January? Like, probably not many people, but taking the initiative to do it, taking the care to write a follow-up note, like, you just never know what's going to happen. And you know me, like, my mind is going like 17,000 miles all the time, where I'm like, oh, I need to launch this ambassador program, and maybe she could help us do that. But like, I just think it goes to show, even when you're like feeling vulnerable and insecure and things aren't going great, saying yes to something, taking it, and then saying thank you or writing a follow-up for it can unlock something that, like, I think the world works that way. And I think careers and life works that way. So that's my...
I guess not something you're personally maybe struggling with, but when you are struggling, I think it's a good advice to just go out there.
Totally.
And act
You just go do something.
Yeah.
I think it's easy to, like, when you're struggling, like I'm struggling at work right now. Like we have so much going on. There's so much we have to figure out. And much of it is hard and difficult. I think being able to say, hey, I'm just still going to keep putting myself out there is one of the hardest things there is to do. But if you just keep doing it, like incredible, you just don't know where it can take you. So that's my spiel. Other random thoughts for folks.
Some parting ways, thoughts, anything?
Parting ways. This winter seems like it's never going to end. It's like the interminable winter. I've been complaining that we don't have winter for like the last decade, and now that we have it,
same.
Now I'm like, I've also made this I've decided that I'm not going to. I have a long driveway, and I'm like, I am shoveling my driveway by myself for the rest of this year. Like we are committing to shoveling. So
have you seen this trick? I don't know. You said it's a long driveway, but there's this kind of hack that I recently saw, just putting like basically tarp on your driveway. So,
really?
Yeah,
so it just melts the snow?
No, it doesn't melt. Well,
or you just drive over it?
You can like just pull the tarp and all the snow, just your driveway's clean. So, but for a long driveway, that might be tough.
No, that's like the lazy way out sort of thing. I am into like shoveling technique. Like I've figured out the herringbone pattern is a great way to shovel. I'm into the herringbone pattern. I think you got to shovel early, often. This is going to be my next Substack if that nice lady decides to help me. But shoveling encapsulates like everything about life and work. Like
definitely.
It sucks. It's backbreaking. You have to find the joy in the menial task. You got to be able to put like your hood on and go outside when it's raining and icing and just keep at it. And then just to not give up. And then to get back up the next day and do it all over again.
Yeah, I'm trying to be efficient and lazy.
Yeah, no, not this winter. And that we are supposed to get like, I don't know, 24 inches of snow or something ridiculous. It's not going to happen. But thank you for listening. I'm not doing the exit. Nobody's calling us.
We actually have one.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so I would like for you to just still tell people that.
All right. So thank you to the people who've been calling us. If you would like to call us and leave us a message, I would prefer you rate and review this show. So if you could rate and review us first, and then second, if you care, please leave us a message at 866-85-ASK-ERIKA. That's 866-85-ASK-ERIKA or 866-852-7357. Leave us your voicemail, leave us your exit interview. Tell us how much you love us or hate us or things you wish we were talking about. And we will go from there. So thank you for listening, and we will see you back here next Monday.
Hey, Erika. I am actually in the last 2 weeks of my job. I just put in my notice about a month ago because I'm leaving the country. My fiance got admitted into ESA's business program, but honestly, I was ready to get the hell out of here. I've had a ownership carrot dangled in front of my face for the last 3 years, telling me that I'm going to take over this company. It's a small 10-person design firm, and 3 years later, still have no equity stake, and I was ready to get out. So I would love to shove that in my bosses' faces and tell them how much their leadership is failing the company, but I'm going to leave with by telling them, I have to leave because I'm leaving the country, and try not to burn any bridges. Thanks.